Greetings, boys and girls. Today we're going to do some mental math. All right, if you've mastered your adding and subtracting and even your multiplication tables up to 10, you should be able to do some pretty simple mental math with a lot of practice, and that's what this video is for. Also, if you go back to a previous video when we talked about distributive property and the commutative property, moving things around will be very helpful for you, so that way you don't have to do a lot of carrying or using a lot of pen and paper. A lot of it you can do in your head and maybe jot down kind of what your answer was on a piece of paper. So here are a couple of useful strategies when doing some mental math. Some important things like converting fractions are very important. Simple things like 0.5 is the same as 1/2, or things like 20% is the same as 1/5. A big thing with percentages is that they're just fractions out of 100. So if you had 20%, you can turn that as a fraction to 20/100 and reduce it. And if you could divide the top and bottom by 20, you can get 1/5. So when we're dealing with 20%, it's just like saying 1/5, which is the same thing as just dividing by 5. If you take a look over at the side here, I have a few conversions of fractions into decimals or just fractions into whole numbers, or even just really large numbers that you can break down into two simple things. For example, 125 is the same as saying 1,000 divided by 8. Or 25 is the same thing as saying is 100 divided by 4. So let's do a few examples so we can get a feel for what we can do when we're doing mental math. So for example, say something is 25% off. That means it's 75% on, or you're just paying for 75% of it. So 75% written as a fraction is 75/100, and you can simplify that as 3/4. So let's say something is $8 and it's advertised at 25% off. Basically what you could do is just multiply that 8 by 3/4 because you're paying for 75% of it. And that just means to divide by 4 and multiply by 3. So 8 divided by 4 is 2. 2 times 3 is 6. So when you're taking 25% off of $8, you're just paying $6 for it. Another practical example is when buying a house, it's a good idea to have a 20% down payment on something. So say you're buying a house for $250,000. You want to have 20% of that down so that way you don't have to pay that PMI insurance. So 20%, which is 20/100, can be reduced to 1/5. So in essence, all you're really doing is just dividing the house price by 5, and that will give you 20%. So 250,000 divided by 5 is $50,000. Now what if you have an example like this? You have 0.135 times 240. You could do that on paper and pen, or you could use a distributive property. I'll put a link for the video up top so you could click that just to review how to do that mentally. Another way you could do that is look at that 0.135 and break it down. It's like saying 0.125 plus 0.01. So now you multiply that 240 times the 0.125 and the 240 times the 0.01, and that's nice because 0.125 is the same thing as saying 1 divided by 8. So really, all you need to do is divide 240 by 8 and you'll get the same result. So 240 divided by 8 is 30, and then you multiply the 240 by 0.01, which is pretty simple also. That just means to divide by 100. And 240 divided by 100 is just 2.4. So you have 30 and 2.4, which means 0.135 times 240 is 32.4. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll have a few over here that you could click on and learn a few things. For my students, I'll have a Google Doc with these facts on here. I also have a few of them in the description below, so that way you can remember them instead of having to write them all down. Make sure to share, like, and subscribe. Tell your friends about this, and always remember to keep on mathing.